everyone, welcome to this episode in the Cornerstone Youth podcast series. We're currently in our series called Life in Lockdown, looking at different aspects of what it means to be a Christian in this season of coronavirus lockdown. And this evening we are going to be talking about the topic of anxiety. And I'm joined by my friends Kathryn, Dan and Ben. Thank you guys for being here. Kathryn, would you mind telling us just a little bit about yourself and give us one thing that's been a positive that has come out of lockdown for you?
Okay, I actually work for church. I'm on the staff team. I am in lockdown with my husband JJ and my daughter Hattie, whose bedroom I'm actually using, and my son Seb. What has been good about lockdown is that I actually really like my family, so it's been really lovely to have lots of extra time with them.
Great. Same for you, Dan?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dan. So I'm a student at the moment in Manchester, but Cornerstone is my home church. So I've been going to Cornerstone for 18 years or whatever it was before I went to uni. Yeah, so I'm studying in Manchester at a music college called the Royal Northern College of Music. But I'm back home in Nottingham now. So I think with lockdown, what's been a good thing, I think similar, I've been able to spend time with my family. So my sister's at home as well. So we've been able to, play games together and just, enjoy chilling out a bit. And also, I've been able to do some practice as well, which always helps as a music student.
Always good. Great, thanks. And Ben, how about you?
So my name's Ben, I'm a junior doctor. Under any other circumstances, I'd still be a medical student, but I've been graduated early as a result of the pandemic. And I think one good thing about lockdown is I've had a chance to slow down for a few weeks. And I had some time to spend with my housemates. And yeah, we just play board games and hang out and relax a little bit before we started work as doctors. So, yeah.
Great. Yeah, I think the reality is most of us can probably identify some positive things that have come out of this lockdown season, and also probably some challenges. And I guess the challenges are what we're going to be primarily focusing on in this episode. So Kathryn, could you maybe give us an example that you're happy to share of a challenge or two that have come out of lockdown, and kind of how those things have made you feel?
Well, I think the biggest challenge posed to us as a family is that we were 2 weeks off moving house before lockdown happened. And that suddenly was all put on hold because the government said you couldn't do anything. And then midway through the process, it became apparent that basically everybody in the chain was getting cold feet. People are really worried about the economic consequences of coronavirus and what the long-term prospect looks like. And we went through about 2 or 3 weeks where I was getting a phone call most days from the estate agent. Our estate agent was still working. Everybody else had been furloughed. Solicitors had been furloughed, bringing us kind of up to date with it. And quite quickly, I think we made our peace with the fact it might not happen. But what was just a constant sort of source of anxiety for me was that I just didn't know which option it was going to be. I didn't know whether we were going to be moving house within weeks and needed to be packing and ordering boxes and sorting out removal men, or whether it was all going to fall apart and we didn't need to do anything. And just having those two completely different possibilities ahead and not knowing which one it was going to be, I found quite hard because I couldn't control anything at all. It just was in other people's hands and I didn't know what was going to end up happening. And every time the telephone rang and I realised it was the estate agent's number, my tummy would kind of churn. I'd think, what's the bit of news going to be? What's going to happen? And actually now we know it has fallen apart and we're staying put for a bit longer. That's fine. It was the anxiety of the uncertainty and not knowing and not being in control.
Okay, so what would you say that situation has kind of highlighted in you and in your relationship with God?
I think that I love control. I love order. I love things being predictable. I love thinking that I can shape what's going to happen. I can determine an outcome because I've thought it through really cleverly and I know what we're going to do and And actually, I think this has been true of everybody to an extent. This pandemic has stripped me of a sense that I have control. And that's really hard, but also really helpful, because it reminds me that I didn't ever really have the control anyway, and that God does have control. So I think it exposes an idol of self and wanting to have the control myself, and actually God has had it all along. But I've been really aware of that.
Yeah, I think many of us can relate to that one. I know, Dan, you've had a kind of an overlapping situation, I guess, with some uncertainty. Do you want to tell us about what's been going on for you?
Yeah, sure. So I think one thing that I've been trying to work through at the moment is the uncertainty of what's going to happen in the autumn term with university. At the moment, they're giving dates to when we're going to start the next term, but actually what the next term will look like is probably a lot of online Zoom sessions and not much face-to-face contact, obviously. And I think the thing that worries me about that is most of my learning isn't lecture-based. It's because it's a practical course, so it's through one-to-one lessons or rehearsals and gigs and performances. And so I think the anxiety that I feel is around partly about getting worth out of my course, because I feel like I'm heading into a year that might actually not be that useful if I'm not learning what I want to be, in the way that would be most useful. And I guess that's the anxiety I'm feeling a lot at the moment, that the kind of the value of the course and the way I love working and enjoy working isn't going to be happening next term.
Yeah, I can see that would be a real challenge. What I guess same question as I asked to Kathryn, really. What if anything has that highlighted in your character, in your relationship with the Lord, would you say?
I think very similar about control, in that and I guess I hadn't really seen this before in regards to my course or my studying, but actually I loved the way it worked before, and I want to do it my way, and that seems to work for me. Obviously God is in control of this, and it makes me really nervous to hand over that control, even though I don't need to be. Just that feeling of anxiety, knowing that I don't know when it's going to return to normal, whether that's a few months or whether that's a year, and I don't know kind of like whether that will be for everyone. I think that idea of uncertainty and lack of control has highlighted to me just I need to depend on God and trust him that his plan is good, and that my plans otherwise are not as good as his.
I guess as humans, like, our plans are fragile, aren't they? Like, this pandemic has definitely served to show that our best laid plans are still subject to God's bigger plan, and
Exactly.
There's a lot of, I guess, kind of disappointments that go along with that at times, but definitely, as you were saying, important to remember and identify the fact that God's plan is bigger and better in that. Ben, I know you, right back at the start of this pandemic, had kind of a big change of plans. Do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I very much empathise with that. It's so I was in Malawi for my medical elective, and I had about a week there. We planned so many good things. We were getting stuck in. We were really enjoying working at the hospital there, and on the first weekend we were there, our elective was cancelled, and we realised we'd have to come back to the UK at very short notice. And what was particularly unnerving about it was that we weren't sure if we'd be able to, because all the countries around Malawi were closing their borders and were closing their airports to British citizens. So there was this is one crazy week where we just had to scrap everything, chuck all our plans out the window, and then scramble to get a flight out of Malawi and to the UK. And it was everything we kind of thought was going to happen just wasn't going to happen, and God really did a 180 on us, and we ended up back in the UK, and our plans completely changed. And I think sitting here now, it's amazing to reflect on what has happened instead of what I thought was going to happen. What I thought was going to happen was that I'd be, on holiday right now. I'd be waiting to become a doctor, and I've done a lot more training. But I've been thrown into this job really early, and I think what's really exposed in me is, I think also a control issue. I want to be in control. I want to know that I have a handle on things, and God has really shown me that I am, so small and so unable to even control my own life and what happens there. But by His grace, He's got me through this time, and I think He's teaching me dependency on Him and not dependency on myself, which I think was a much bigger issue in my life before I went. I sort of had to go through all this change planning stuff.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thanks. Yeah, I think so. Definitely a theme, isn't there, between all of you guys of having plans and having the Lord change those, and needing to learn to trust Him in the midst of what is probably the biggest period of uncertainty that any of us have faced. I don't know, but certainly as a society in my lifetime, I would say that is true. So I wonder what you guys have found kind of to be helpful, to be an encouragement, to be a particularly poignant lesson, or what kind of thoughts would you want to share about that? Kathryn, do you want to chip in?
I think it's we like to think we're grown up, don't we? We like to think that we're kind of we're in control and that we have autonomy. And actually, this is unbelievably humbling, because what we realise is actually that God is the Father, and all of us, however, I'm nearly 40, but we actually are still children in Father's hands. And also, I think there's really good about realising how limited humanity is. I think we can be quite arrogant, and we can think, we can resolve this. We've got all this research and all this intelligence, and we have all this brilliant infrastructure. We can resolve this. I can resolve this. But actually, there's a real lesson in humility here, that God is God and we're human and we're dust. I mean, we also have enormous dignity because we're made in His image and He loves us tenderly as a father. But I think there is a lesson for humility, which is actually a gift. It's a gift that God is teaching us this. It's a gift that He's teaching us that He's the Father and that we're children who need to hold His hands and be led. But we've got to have the humility to acknowledge that and to admit that we're weaker than we want to admit.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. And I think that's part of why we're seeing so many people who aren't Christians attending online services and asking big questions, because people are realizing that they're finite and they're not able to navigate the system and the situation under their own steam. I think that's definitely potential for the Lord to be using that humbling beyond just those of us who know Him. That's great. Okay, how about you, Dan? What would you say?
Something I've found really helpful is it's a couple of passages around the Bible, but the theme of God just saying be still and know that He is God. I think I find that really helpful when I compare to what I'd be like if I didn't have God in my life. If actually all the problems and the chaos that it looks like in the world at the moment, the obvious way to deal with that is, do something about it, work or try something new, or be striving for the next thing or whatever challenge comes next. And hearing those words where actually God says, or at least to me at the moment, it feels like He's been saying, God, Dan, no, just be still, actually just trust and have that rest in the Lord. It was through studying in Exodus. This is after the Israelites have come out of Egypt, and but they're not free yet because they can see the whole Egyptian army. Exodus chapter 14, verse 14, it says, "The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." And and like they're kind of ready for like a battle or for for kind of this terrible confrontation. And actually no, like the Lord just says be still. And I'm not in a battle like that at the moment, but I do feel that disorientation of I don't know what's going to come, and I feel nervous about it. But yeah, that's been reassuring to me, just that God's got it, and He says be still, because I can trust that it's all in His hands.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah, I would agree with that. Ben, what about you?
I think the thing that I found consistently helpful, and especially that I found really helpful when I was scrambling to get out of Malawi, was Psalm 130, which is it's a psalm of someone in a really dark place crying out to God and just waiting for Him to help them. I think it's more originally about someone who realizes their sin and calls out to God. I think it's also just about someone who's in a difficult place, in a dark place, and they are just crying out, waiting for God to show up and help them, basically. And there's this particular verse which just says, I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, in His words I hope. And I just read that psalm every day when I was trying to organise how I'd travel back to the UK, and it just gave me such strength every day to know that's where my hope is. Just the Word of God, Jesus Christ, all His promises. I can put my hope there, and I don't have to, just hope that the airlines will be good. I don't have to hope that I can work things out myself. I just have to put my hope in God, put my hope in Christ, and whatever happens, He has got me in His hands. And that's still continued to help me through the uncertainty of not knowing if I was going to get a job as a doctor. And it's helping me today, having seen patients and knowing my own inadequacy on the wards, just having a hope in God and knowing that He will come through, and whatever happens is I am in His hands.
Yeah, it's really encouraging. Kathryn, I saw you reach for your Bible there. Did you share something?
Well, I was just thinking that really, like the whole of the Psalms, I think, have been like a songbook and a prayer book for this period. Like they just express human experiences and trials and tribulations so brilliantly. But so I've read lots of different Psalms. I haven't gone as consistently back to one as Ben has, but lots of different Psalms in different days have been a blessing to me. And one that I just really enjoyed was Psalm 8. So Psalm 8 paints this picture of God creating the heavens. And it says in verse 3, when I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you've set in place, what is mankind that you're mindful of them, human beings that you care for them? And I love how that simultaneously paints this image of God as the one who put stars in place, who created everything, who holds all things in His hands, but He also cares for mankind. He's mindful of human beings. And it's not so good now because it's lighter in the evenings, but I did quite go through a phase earlier on of just looking at the stars, because it gave me a sense of perspective and thinking, yeah, look, there's no pollution. Lockdown's been really good for the environment. I can see the stars, and God made those stars, and God who put those stars there cares for me, so He will look after me. He'll look after me eternally. Like, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Yeah. Guys, this has been really encouraging for me, at least. It's definitely been food for my soul. I hope that for those of you who are listening, it encourages you, that it challenges you to just be still, to wait on the Lord, to know that He is your Father and He holds you in His hands. And if some of you listening are Cornerstone youth and you are struggling with anxiety at the minute, do get in touch with us as a youth team. Send Phil an email, get your parents, send them an email, and we'd be really happy to catch up with you and try and support you in that. You're not alone. As you can tell, we were all experiencing anxieties in lockdown, but we are brothers and sisters in Christ, so we are here to support each other. So that brings to an end this episode of our podcast. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me and take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Anna. Bye.